on one by one to the section 2. So section 1, as I just told you, that it only covers the title and the applicability of the Standing Order Act. Section 2 comprises of the various important definitions that are given under the Standing Order Act. So the first important definition is that of appellate authority, that is defined under section 2 subsection A. This is the appellate authority that is appointed by the appropriate government and which is mentioned in the official notification by the official gazette. Second is section 2B, that defines the appropriate government. Appropriate government means the area where that industrial establishment is there, where it is functioning. Generally it is central government, but for the state it is state government, and for the railway it is regulated as per the Railways Act. For the mines, it is regulated as per the Mines Act. For the oil port, it is regulated as per Oil Ports Act. And otherwise, the state government and the central government are the appropriate government in the majority of the cases. Section 2C describes the certifying officer. We have been discussing that. Certifying officer is the one person who is responsible for certification of the standing order. So, he can be a labor commissioner, he can be a regional labor commissioner, he can be any other authority appointed by the appropriate government, again going with the central government and the state government or the other government in case of the other bodies like railways, mines and oil. And it by the appropriate government whereby notification in the official gazette may appoint any of these as the certifying officer to certify the standing order put forward by the industrial establishment. Section 2D defines who is an employer. Employer means the owner of the company, the person who manages the company, that manages the affairs of the company, is the person who is appointed by the authority to regulate the affairs of the company, that is appointed by the government to manage the whole functions of the company. For the factory, he is a manager, and he is a person who is responsible to manage day-to-day affairs. He is regarded as the employer under the Standing Order Act. Section 2E describes the industrial establishment. That means that according to Payment of Wages Act, Payment of Wages Act also defines the industrial establishment. So Standing Order has taken the definition of industrial establishment from the Payment of Wages Act itself. Apart from that, factory defined in Factories Act 1948 defines section under 2M what is factory, any manufacturing unit employing 10 or more persons working without the aid of power, and any person 20 or more people working with the aid of the power is defined as factory. The railway is defined in the Indian Railways Act 1980. What is a railway? So definition of an industrial establishment of a railway would be regulated and would be taken from the Indian Railway Act. Similarly, the establishment of person who for the purpose. So industrial establishment is the establishment of a person for the purpose for fulfilling the contract of the employer, hire the people to get the work done, and he employs the workmen, is known as the industrial establishment. Similarly, section 2G explains the contents of the standing order. What are the standing order? What are the important provisions in the standing order? What are the headlines that need to be mentioned for its approval? उसमें क्या होना चाहिए, क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, like the classification of the workers. We have been studying about the workers, and we will be studying about the workers in various acts like Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Factories Act, Payment of Gratuity Act. Who is a worker? Though there in the standing order it is clearly mentioned who are the workers. Workers are classified on the basis of the permanent workers, the temporary workers, the seasonal workers, the contractual workers, the supervisory and having the skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled workers, and many more. Second content is manner of intimation. How will you intimate the workers? What are your responsibilities? What are your duties? What are your rights in a company? What are the provision in a company given to you, the facility given to you regarding the pay that you will get, the holidays, the number of holidays that you are able to avail, the number of vested holidays, the paid leaves, the approved and sanctioned leaves, what are the hours of working, what are your shift, how many hours you will work, if you're a child, what is the working, if you're a woman, then what is the working hour, if you're an adult, what if you're an adolescent, what is the number of hours you have to work and to give in an industrial establishment, shifts that you'll be working, how many shifts you can take, what are the provisions regarding the overtime. Moving ahead, what are the provisions regarding the attendance and late coming, what are the penalties for the if the person is absconding from the job, is not coming on the job, what are the attendance issues, what is the regulatory framework for the attendance, what are the punishment for the late arrival if the person is coming late to the job, is reporting to the late to the job, then what are the penalty procedure, how far the rules are going to be related. So these are things to be aware about the workers, to the workers also. Then what is the method for the leaves? How many leaves in an year you will get? What is the entitlement of the leave? How many paid leaves? How many earned leaves? How many gazetted leaves? What is the method of approval of the leaves? How many leaves you are able to avail in a month? Whether you can club your leaves or whether you cannot club your leaves. Whether the leaves continue to the next year or it will lapse in a similar year. So the leaves and how you will get your leaves sanctioned by the appropriate authority or your reporting authority. Similarly, how will you enter the premises? What are the safety gadgets you're going to wear when you are entering into the premises? What are the do's and don'ts to enter? Which gate you will take? How many exit? What is the fire exit? What's the route map plan? All these things are mentioned into the entire premises provisions. Then comes the termination of employment. What are the grounds on which your employer going to terminate the job of his employee or a worker? What are the suspension issues? What are the dismissal? What is the discharge issue? What are the probation the company has to follow to dismiss, discharge or suspend their workers from the job? What kind of salary you will get if you will be terminated by the company or you are found guilty in any kind of an unfair practices? Then what is the redressal machinery if there is a conflict with related to some aspect like that of the termination only, that employer terminated the employee without any notice, then the conflict can arise on this issue also. So this issue can be taken to the redressal machinery. What is the procedure followed by the grievance handling machinery? How you will put forward the award, and that will be binding on both the parties. If you are not satisfied, how you will appeal to the higher authority. So such, and what are the unfair practices that the workers would not indulge and do at the behest of the workers, and what are the unfair practices that employer are not supposed to or employees are prohibited to follow in the company premises. Similarly, section 2I defines the workman. Workman here discusses about the what is the workman, who is a skilled worker, who is a semi-skilled worker, who is an unskilled worker, whether that worker is a technical or is a managerial or having a supervisory skills. So worker is defined as a person who renders the services to the establishment in lieu of certain wages. So the classification of workers are also mentioned here in section 2I, and the workman is defined in the Standing Order Act. Workman is also defined in various other acts like Factories Act. When we study the Factories Act 1948, then we will also study the what is factory, what is workman, what is an industrial establishment, who is a certifying officer, who is an inspector, who is a certifying surgeon. So there are various definitions that relate to the important definitions of the Act, and these definitions get to be common parlance and understood and interpreted in the right context as per the right terminology is concerned. Whenever you are writing the exam, make sure you are using the right terminology, you are using the right section. Don't write the wrong section if you don't know. Just omit it. It is advisable that you write the right section. If you don't remember, if you don't tend to remember, then there is no point writing the section. But make sure you mark up the right section. So these are the important definitions in section 2. Just take a quick recap. Section 2A defines the appellate authority. Section 2B defines the appropriate government. Section 2C defines the certifying officer, the person who is responsible for certification of the standing order and maintenance of the register. Then section 2D defines the employer. Section 2E defines the industrial establishments. And section 2G defines the standing order, and last but not the least 2I, that is workman. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 important definitions are covered under the Standing Order Act. Next we will move on to section 3. So Section 1 defines the title and the applicability of the Act. We know that this Act is called as the Standing Order Act, Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act. It extends to whole of India. It came into force on 1st April 1947, and the idea was conceived by the 6th National Labour Conference. Section 2 defines important definitions of the Act. Section 3 defines about the certifying officer and the method of approval, and so on. Certifying officer is a person who is responsible for the certification of the standing order and approves the draft standing order if found as per the provisions of the duty of a employer. It's a duty of the industrial establishment employer to draft the standing order within 6 months and forward it to the certifying officer for the approval. Similarly, when certifying officer finds that this draft standing order conforms with the standard of the Act, approves it and records into the register. So there are other sections, section 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 15, and one schedule of the Act. We'll be discussing it in the coming up lectures. Thank you so much. The lecture for today will go into the detail about the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946. This is one of the very important act that was enacted to facilitate the working conditions and the terms of employment between the employer and the employee. What happened prior to the enactment of this act, the usual practice of the management was to enter into a contract of employment, whether express or implied, with the workers on the various terms and conditions, whether fulfilled by one party or the other party, and if not fulfilling the all those obligations as mentioned of employment contract, that leads to the conflict either at the end of the worker or at the end of the management. In order to avoid all these practices among the employer and employee, and to avoid the industrial dispute and conflict among these two components of IR, this act was constituted. The question of framing Standing Order Act were considered by the 6th Labour Commission. And dwell on the idea to constitute the Standing Order Act for the factories, for the establishment, for the employers and for the employees, by which both the parties can abide and go on with their working conditions smoothly in order to avoid the industrial unrest and the conflict among the parties. The Act came into force on 1st April 1947. The object of the Act was then to deal with the terms of employment conditions. Deal with the terms of employment conditions of the workers in an industrial establishment, that are obligatory upon all the parties, that is the employer, and to define precisely the conditions, that is the terms of the employment for both the parties to follow, that is the employer and the employee, that is the worker and the management. And also required to define, this act also required to define the conditions of work and service in the establishment and to reduce them to writing and to avoid any kind of disputes and conflict and grievances among the parties, because that retards production, that retards the work time that needs to be given to produce some output. So in order to avoid all this, the Standing Order Act was constituted and was thought over by the 6th Indian Labour Conference. In a nutshell, Standing Order Act is a nature of shop rules. Shop rules, and it is also called as the Code of Conduct. So, we have discussed what is Industrial Employment Standing Order Act, why it was constituted, when it came into force, how it is called as shop rules, and what is the Code of Conduct. Moving further, the aim of the Act is to define with sufficient precision the terms of the employment, the condition of employment, the duties, the responsibilities and the obligation of the employer, and what are the rights of the employees, how to maintain the proper discipline among the industrial establishment, working condition, and to achieve the higher productivity and standards with the company, with the kind of a facility given in the company. Also to specify the duties for the employer and the employees. After discussing the aims of the Act, we will now dwell on the features of the Act. So, Act applies to all establishment having 100 or more workers employed in a preceding year of 12 months. It covers all matters specified in the schedule. It is approved by the proper authority. Proper authority, that is the certifying officer, and it is also the duty of the employer to make it aware and publish in a manner understandable by the workers in a language understandable to the majority of the workers. Apart from that, all principal terms and conditions of employment should be written precisely applies to the establishment where 100 or more workers are employed any day of preceding 12 months calendar year. It also has to specify the procedure for settlement of disputes. Right? Any kind of dispute arise as a result of the conflict among the employer and employee, then how the resolution has to be done, what is the conflict management machinery, what is the judicial machinery, that needs to be clearly stated in the Standing Order Act. It is a central act and it applies to the whole of India. The condition is that it will only apply to the establishment where 100 or more workers are employed at any preceding day. The Act also has various schemes. The Act is divided into 15 sections and one schedule. Various section contains various provision related to the Act. So starting over with the section 1. Section 1 consists of the title and applicability of the Act. Simultaneously, section 2 discusses or defines various terms like appropriate government, industrial establishment, certifying officer, appellate authority, appropriate government, and so on. Section 3, cast upon the duty on the employer to draft the standing order within 6 months of the applicability of the Act. Section 4, Section 4 calls for the certification of the standing order by the certifying officer. And making the workers aware in the language understandable by majority of the workers. Section 5, Section 5 gives the provision regarding the procedure followed by certifying officer for the registration and certification of the standing order. Section 6 is again the appeal. Against the CO, if either of the party, both the party is not satisfied with the decision and the certification process by the certifying officer, they can reach out and they can appeal to the higher authority for the against the certifying officer. Section 7 and Section 8. Section 7 lays down the date from which standing order shall become applicable and binding on the parties. Similarly, Section 8 calls for regarding the maintenance of the register of all the standing orders by the certifying officer. Section 9 calls for pasting of this order in the premises of the establishment in English or the local language or the language understandable by the majority of the workers in order to make workers aware about their duties and responsibilities. Section 10 calls for the duration and modifications, if any, of standing order. Section 11 calls for the power of the authority discontented with the standing orders. Section 12 specifies that no oral evidence is required when the case is admitted in the court. Section 13 provides for the penalties and procedure associated with it. Section 14 mentions the misconduct issues and the disciplinary issues. Confers upon the appropriate government to make powers to carry out the rules and to carry out the structure for the purpose of the applicability of the Act. Of the government to make rules. So section 10 calls for the duration and modification of standing order if it is required and the procedure associated with it. Section 11 calls for the powers of the authorities in case of the parties are discontented with the decision of the certifying officer. They are free to appeal to the higher of the authorities in section number 6. Section 12 states that no oral evidence is required when no oral evidence is required when it is admitted into the courts. Section 13 laid down the procedure for the penalties and procedure to enforce such penalties on the parties, either of them, the management or the employer. Section 14 contains the entire provision related to the misconduct and disciplinary issues if found anyone guilty, the disciplinary actions and what is the procedure, what is the fine, what is the various kinds of things which we enforce on the guilty should be mentioned clearly into section 14 of the Standing Order Act, and section 15 confers the rights of the appropriate government to make rules for the parties or make rules for the industrial establishment. So in a nutshell, this is the Standing Order Act that provides the entire applicability and gives the duties and responsibilities of the employer and the employee, the do's and don'ts of the employers and the employees, the rights of the employer and employees, what the procedure, the method of modification, the method of hiring, the penalties, the procedures, the grievance handling procedures, the rights of the authorities, the method of certification, the role of the certifying officer. So in a nutshell, Standing Order Act is divided into 15 sections. We have just stated one by one and one schedule. An act is abided by all the schedules that are mentioned in the act. So certifying officers only approve the act, only approve the standing order once he is satisfied that his standing order, the draft of standing order as forwarded by the industrial establishment, is in provision with the Act. With this we come to the summary of the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act. We'll come to it in detail, section-wide listing in the coming up lectures. Thank you.